Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to wait for a few more minutes. Just to make sure that everyone knows that the question and answer, as you can start typing questions early in there if you'd like. Let me see. The chat is on. So thank you for joining. This is Allison from Source Booksellers here in Detroit. We are an independent bookstore in Midtown Detroit, and we focus primarily on nonfiction. So we have a nonfiction niche. We have books for adults and young people. And it happens that we carried the best-selling book, The Sisters Are All Right, by Tamara Winfrey Harris when it was out. And so now we have a second chance to enjoy her book. And that work in particular offered insight and information about Black women moving into adulthood. And this one continues, the book, Dear Black Girl, continues that same work, but giving voice and encouragement to young Black girls between the ages, I think, of 13 and 21. And so this is needed now more than ever. Today, Tamara, who specializes in the space where current events and politics and pop culture intersect with race and gender. And so you'll see a lot of that in the letters. She will be joined by Adila Didi Adi, who is a local blogger and a writer. And today she's going to be in conversation with Tamara, talking about the letters and talking about and celebrating the release of this book, which was released last week. So I'm going to bring on Tamara.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I am well, and I am so excited to be here. I visited Source Booksellers for the first time a few years ago with my dear friend Rochelle Riley with her book, The Burden, that I contributed to, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So I am so glad that you invited me back.
Did you two plan, you and Rochelle Riley, to have books for young people out at the same time?
You know, we didn't, but we were like, oh my gosh, we can't believe we have like books weeks apart.
Yep. So we had an event for That They Lived on February 1st, sort of our Black History kickoff. And so now we get to start off March. Well, mid-March with this one. So it's nothing but a pleasure to have you and to be a part of the tour that you're on. And so where are you going to be going next?
So next tomorrow, well, unfortunately, every place I'm going to be going is right here in this city because we're in the middle of a panini. The good part of that is it's allowing me to interact with lots of different bookstores. So my next event will be tomorrow with Mahogany Books in
Nice.
DC, and on Friday with Books and Books in Miami.
My
My
sister,
sister.
my sister lives in Miami, and so I'm gonna ask her tune in to Books and Books.
Wonderful.
All right, so let's bring on Adila.
Hi everyone, this is Adila, also go by Didi, Didi Adi.
And do
I
you
am a
want to tell us a
writer.
little bit about the Womanist Girl on Tumblr?
Yeah. So I am a writer, and I write about womanism and Black feminism on my blog, Womanist Girl. It's just a space to celebrate Black womanhood and also just activism that uplifts the Black woman community. And so that's really all I blog about. I go to events that uplift Black women. I write about those events, but I also just share resources with Black women that can just uplift us.
Thank you so much. I'm going to leave it to you two to talk about Dear Black Girl.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that Dee Dee and I talked about before we got started, everyone, is I'd love to share a little bit from the preface of the book so you can get sort of an idea of the context of the narrative. And then we're going to chat. So the preface is titled, "We Are All Right." And it's a callback to my first book, which is "The Sisters Are All Right, Changing the Broken Narrative of Black Women in America." And the idea is that I want Black women and Black girls to know, and everyone else to know, that we are inherently valuable and human, and we are all right despite all of the negative messages that are thrown at us. So we are all right. My Black girls, you tell me things. You tell me how you love your mamas, but kind of hate them too. You tell me about the fuck boys at school who text dirty messages. You tell me about the beauty insecurities, 2 big noses and 5 heads. You tell me who you like, showing me pictures of boys on IG and giggling, "Ain't he cute?" You tell me these things and I smile. It's been a while since I was a girl, but I remember hating my parents' rules and being insecure about my looks. I remember the trifling boys and the superfine crushes. Some things about Black girlhood never change. You tell me other things too. You tell me about anxiety or depression that will not let go. You tell me about social media memes that leave you feeling demeaned and hated. You tell me about boys and men who violate you and families who cannot deal with the devastation of sexual assault. You tell me about carrying the burden of friends and family who have been murdered. You tell me about families who cannot accept your queer identity. You tell me about schools that suspend you for petty reasons. You tell me how people assume you are angry, unfeminine, grown, and hypersexual before you can even find out who you are for yourself. You tell me these things and I worry. I remember that the world does not value Black girls like it should. Some things that are too common in Black girlhood must change. So that's just a portion of the preface to the book.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Do you remember where you were at when you were writing this preface and what was going through your mind?
Well, I was like a lot of things were going through my mind. One of them was just the experience I had touring with my first book. I was driving around with a good friend of mine and we were on our way back to Indianapolis, and something struck us about some of the meetings we'd been having with Black women. And it was that, when we talked about Black womanhood, they all rejected all of those stereotypes about Black women, hypersexual, angry, emasculate, like all of those things that you hear. But then when they started talking about younger women and girls, some of those same negative stereotypes came up. In fact, I remember in particular, one woman saying something like, these young women are sure free with their bodies. I guess they call that liberation. And it just, the look on her face was such disgust. And it made me think what messages we're giving to our sisters, our younger sisters, about who they are and their value. And then also with that same friend, I had been spending time interviewing teenage Black girls. And so, hearing a lot from them, all of the different experiences they have, their insecurities, their triumphs. And so their voices were kind of swirling in my head as I wrote that preface.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. This is a very strong preface. It's, there's so many things to think about here, and there's so many things we can relate to, even as like adult Black women, just because we did go through Black girlhood, and these are some of the things that we carry with us. Thank you for sharing that. Now is the in between where we kind of just ask about the book, and you probably heard this question so many times because you've been on tour, but what inspired you to put together this book?
So, I had all that stuff in my head that I told you about, but then I was doing a workshop with two dear friends of mine, Dr. Tiffany Monfort Dent and Dr. Carolyn Strong. And, it was going to be an intergenerational workshop. So Black women, Black girls. And I just thought it would be neat if the girls that were participating, got to leave with a letter from a Black woman. So 12. And so I just offhandedly went on social media, on Facebook, in fact, and just said, hey, is anyone willing to write a letter to a Black girl? And oh my gosh, did Black women show up. It went viral, so people shared it. I got more than 50 letters from around the world. I got one from as far as Switzerland. And women sent they asked me for my mailing address. They sent me journals to give the girls. They sent lovely cards. It was absolutely beautiful. And I read the first letter that I received and ugly cried because it was so beautiful. And then I felt like this needed to be more than a moment. It should be a movement. And I wanted, and it's hard. I've got a job, so it's hard for me to keep getting letters to girls, although I still do accept letters and send them on. I knew one great way to get letters in as many girls' hands as possible would be through a book.
Okay, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And when you started writing this book, did you reach out to the people who had sent you the letter at first and tell them, I got this letters and this is how it made me feel, and I think I'm about to start a book? And how did they feel about that?
Yeah, I feel very strongly about consent. And so, I didn't want to, and some of the letters I received were really personal. And women did what I asked them to, and wrote letters through the lens of vulnerability. So, I wanted to make sure that they were okay with me sharing the letters. So I reached out to letter writers. And then I also solicited some specific letters because I wanted to make sure that Black girls saw themselves in the book in all the ways they show up in the world, right? So, I wanted to make sure I had letters from biracial Black girls. I wanted to make sure when I talked about families that I talked about families where, girls were adopted, or families where they were raised by, grandparents. I wanted to make sure trans girls were included. So, I accepted some of those letters that I got from that first call, but then looked for other women to kind of round out.
Okay. So you were held by multiple Black women in the writing of this book, and it started with first them writing letters, and then you were so like touched by the letters, and you felt like it needed to be a book, and then they held you in that process as well.
Mhm.
Um, while you were writing, even outside of the women who wrote letters in the book, were there other community members holding you through this process that kept you like motivated while you were writing?
I have the best sister circle ever. And they always hold me down. And some of them contributed to the book. But even aside from writing letters to the book, you know, they're always there championing me when I do things. And I them. And so my sister circle was strong around me as I was putting this together, and you know, holding me up when I was frustrated because I was trying to get it done, helping me like locate women that fit certain demographics, and then just cheering me on. I think there may be some of them in the participants somewhere, but yeah.
Okay. Speaking of sister circle, you did. Oh, someone said, Dr. Tiffany, we love you, Tammy. Okay, that's
I love you too, Tiffany.
circle. Wow. Yeah, it's good you mentioned your sister circle because in one of the chapters, chapter 2, you were talking about it for real takes a village
Mhm.
and family relationships, and that was a very powerful chapter that just really talked about how important it is for us as Black girls to have a Black village. Can you share more about that with our
Well,
participants?
the thing that I thought was really important about that chapter is, you know, Black families often get denigrated because a lot of our families aren't traditional. It's not, you know, a mom and a dad living in a house with 2 kids and a dog and a cat. And that has been a theme over the last several decades, that somehow the lack of traditional families is creating chaos in the Black community. And a lot of girls that I've talked to have said that, you know, that makes them feel bad and it makes them feel marginalized. You know, they talk about teachers who come up to them and ask, now is your father in the home? You know, like they see the ways that Black children are marginalized because people think our families are dysfunctional. And I want girls to know that if you have people around you who love you and support you and hold you down, that is a family. Whether it's a family of choice or it's a family by blood, that is family. And so I wanted to celebrate family in many of the ways that it shows up in that chapter.
It's so beautiful. Is it okay if we read one of those letters in
Sure.
that chapter?
Sure. And just because, you know, a good one to read might be, since she is a Detroiter,
Okay.
to read Rochelle Riley's letter, because she contributed to this book. And I'm very lucky that she did, because she lended her talent to the book. So she wrote, "Dear young queens raised by people who aren't your mothers and fathers. I want to tell you something that someone else might not until after you have experienced years of sadness, feeling different or out of step or wishing for something or someone you don't have. I want to help lift that sadness. I want to offer you a look at a family that may look more like yours. But first, I need to tell you something that is true. There is no single definition of family. There are traditional families made up of a father, mother, and 2.5 children, which makes no sense because no one has half a child. There are single parent families who are constantly branded less than other families. But to try to brand every family with a single label is wrong. Every family filled with love is right. So this letter These words of love, dear hearts, are for those of you like me, members of maid families, like the ones where Big Mama runs the house. But she's not really your mom, and your dad is not your dad, but is an uncle or a grandfather or family friend. Let me tell you about my maid family. When I was 3 years old, I was growing up with my brother in a New York City apartment. Soon after my sister's birth, my mother contracted multiple sclerosis. My parents broke up, and my maternal grandmother, the only one I ever knew, charged into Grand Central Terminal like a Confederate general retrieving a lost heritage. She bundled up my mother, my siblings, and me and packed us up for a lonely Amtrak ride, a sad journey from the grand, gritty spirit of New York to a slower paced, southern to a fault, small town in North Carolina. I spent the next 15 years missing my father and wishing for a conventional family with a father, mother, and children. I prayed for him to show up on a white horse, gather us all up, and take us back to the Big Apple. Every year I wished for him. Every year he didn't come. I also lived with the guilt of wanting him, while my grandparents made sure they provided everything I would need to become the best me possible: a good education, every opportunity I asked for every year, and more love than I ever deserved. My grandfather worked 3 jobs to make ends meet. My grandmother was a homemaker who also helped care for any other children who needed her. My grandparents became my parents. And when I wanted to join the high school band, they bought me a clarinet. When I made the cheerleading squad, they bought the uniform. When I was accepted early into the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, they made sure I could go. I remember the day my grandfather, dressed in his best Sunday suit, drove us west to my future. He was so proud. My grandmother was so proud. And there I was, all of 18 years old, finally realizing that the father I had yearned for all those years wasn't coming back. And the father who made sure I had everything I ever needed was sitting in the driver's seat and loved me most of all. And the mother I felt I had lost because she had lost the use of her limbs still cheered me on, while my grandmother became the mother who nursed emotional and physical wounds, taught me how to make coffee, and used to let me sit on the floor, my head on her knee, while she scratched my scalp. And when I entered my junior year and needed an internship to prove that my journalism skills could be used in the real world, I didn't look for or even think about my father. I earned the internship, but the newspaper, the News and Observer, was in Raleigh, North Carolina, the state capital, about 40 minutes from Chapel Hill by car. And I didn't have a car. So the weekend after I got the good news, I climbed aboard a Greyhound bus, the mode of transport I'd used for 2 years to go home from college. Defeated, deflated, and bereft of hope, I got to the house and threw myself into bed. Suddenly, my grandfather knocked on the bedroom door. "What's wrong with you?" he said gruffly. He was a gruff man, loving but gruff. I told him that I'd gotten a job at a newspaper, but the newspaper was too far away from campus for me to accept it. I told him that I'd just wasted 2 years and I would never write an article that could help me get a full-time job. I told him I may as well stay home and work at the gas station downtown that was owned by a high school classmate's father. He didn't speak again. But the next morning, early Saturday, he knocked on my door and said, "Go see whose car that is out front." My grandfather, who worked in a mill, cleaned downtown offices, and drove a cab, all for his expanded family, was never one to be questioned, let alone disobeyed. So I grabbed a robe and padded out to the curb. There sat a used 1974 Ford Maverick. It was clean as a whistle and totally empty from the glove compartment to the trunk. "There's nothing in it to let me know whose car this is," I said to him as he stood on the front porch near the front door. "Now you can get to work," he said, and he turned and walked back into the house. And I stood in the street sobbing. No, we were not a traditional family, but we were an intentional family. We were the family we needed, that I needed. We were not traditional. We were not a two-parent household with a mom and a dad and a sister and a brother. But that couple who raised their two daughters, then raised three of their grandchildren, was a power couple with stellar character and out of this world work ethic and humor when needed. They were loving, empowering, and more important than anything, they were there, and they were the best I could have ever had. So, dear hearts, do not let anyone define your family, whether you live with an auntie or your grandparents or with people who don't share your blood, but share your dreams. Love the family you have and love yourself enough to make them proud. All my best, Rochelle, sister to hundreds of women who are not my sisters, and Mama Ro to dozens of children who aren't my own.
Wow, that was so beautiful. That was beautiful. When you were reading this letter, when Rochelle shared it with you,
Mhm.
Courtney says, "What a beautiful letter. Thank you so much for reading it."
Thank you, Courtney.
Yes, that is so beautiful. When you received this letter from Rochelle, what was resonating with you? What made you feel I have to put this letter in my book?
You know, the actually the thing that resonated me is the thing that lets me know that no matter what your family looks like, you know, it's special and it's your family. Because, you know, reading about her grandfather who surprised her with that car made me think of my dad. And I do come from a traditional family with two parents who've been married more than 50 years and three kids. And so it made me think of something my dad would do. He surprised me with a car when I graduated from college. And it made me think of my grandfathers who were also always there for their kids. And it just made me think of, you know, all of the many good men that have surrounded me and my family. So I think it's, you know, that's an illustration of how even if you don't recognize the precise experiences that you see in the book, that I think there are parts of this that are just human experiences that I think are really important.
Thank you for sharing. Um, when you talk, when you read Rochelle's writing about intentional family, it made me think about the many queer and trans Black girls who are having to make intentional families that are non-traditional but
Mhm.
are full of love. Um, I know that you said that when you first got the letters, you reached out to different uh, types of Black girls just to get a fuller picture of our Black girl community. Um, are there any letters from queer or trans Black girls that also have to do with love or finding family in non-traditional settings?
There aren't letters from queer girls in the family section, but there are letters from gender non-binary, queer, and trans women in the identity section. And in some of the other sections, although they may not explicitly say they are queer women, they may be writing about something else. But that was very important to me that, you know, my sisters, you know, are included, because I think too often when you get books for Black girls, queer women, and, you know, trans women, like they're left out.
Yes, yes, they are. Um, do you have a favorite letter from the book, which really, I know you said that the Rochelle's letter resonated with you, but you had a more traditional family and she had a more non-traditional family. But are they letters in the book that you resonate with because it's kind of similar to your journey?
Not necessarily like exactly my journey, but, you know, as I said before, there are like little bits of things that I think resonate across experiences. Like one of my dear friends, Dr. Carolyn Strong, wrote about being, a dark-skinned woman. And I think for anyone who has ever struggled with their appearance or wondered whether they look okay, or looked on TV and saw that most of the women there that are held up as being beautiful don't look like you, I think those kind of things resonate and remind me of what it was like to be, a kid.
I like that. Thank you. Now this might not be a favorite, but it was one of the letters that really stood out to me because I am a village minded person. I love the village. I love the unconventional family, the chosen family. And I really embrace that because I do believe it does take a village to raise girls and children. So this one here is called, it's on page 75, Where My Girl's At, and it's by Deidre, and it's talking about friendship. And
Yes.
yes, that is so important for me because friendships are just like another part of family, right? It's another part of our village, and the people who really hold us while we're going through girlhood. Um, I wanted to know if it was okay for us to read that.
Yes, sure. Do you want to read it or would you like me to read it?
I like your voice, okay? You have
Okay.
a very nice, soothing voice, so please.
I will read it, and this is from the chapter Where My Girl's At, which is about friendship between women. Dear Black girl, there's a formula for true friendship. True friends give, they don't always take. True friends allow you to be your true self. They don't ask you to conform to who they are. True friends celebrate your triumphs, not your defeats. True friends are honest but kind. True friends give name to your pain. They don't call you names. True friends save you from bad situations. They don't create bad situations. True friends build you up. They don't tear you down. True friends honor you as a person, and they make you feel honored to know them. It is not asking too much to demand these things of your girlfriends. Now, you may be thinking, yeah, sometimes my friends are messy. We fall out over dumb stuff. Sometimes they're jealous or I'm jealous. Sometimes they talk about me behind my back. Oh, and yeah, I talk about them a little too, a little, maybe a lot. Sometimes a couple of them act like they're better than me, but they're my girls. Forgive and forget, right? Black girl, what you will accept in relationships, including friendships, is often a reflection of how much you value yourself or how you behave as a friend. Inconsistent friends are often a sign that something needs to change. Sometimes people show up or show out based on the energy you put in the world. You say, I don't like people who gossip, but you are the gossiper and you attract gossips. You say, people always take me for granted, but you constantly put yourself last and you teach others to put you last too. You say, I want friends who celebrate me and give me grace, but you dwell on poor decisions and situations and ignore your wins. Remember that building lasting and true friendships requires that you have integrity and that you be a true friend to yourself. You have to take responsibility for your happiness and know your worth. And don't ever believe an inconsistent friend means that, quote, females are too hard to get along with. They are jealous and bring nothing but drama. Sadly, I know you've heard this before. Anyone who tells you this has never experienced the value, sisterhood, respect, and admiration of true friendship with other girls. The older us Black girls get, the more we realize there's nothing like the warm embrace of a true friend, and no one will ever have your back like your sisters. Black girl, learn to love, honor, and value yourself, and you will attract like-minded true friends who will remind you that you are worthy of respect, worthy of honor, and more than worthy to be loved. With love, respect, and in the spirit of sisterhood, Deidre, who I also believe is a Detroiter, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that's what's up. Detroit stand up.
Detroit
Okay.
came through.
Yes, yes, okay. As they should, you know, I love Detroit and I love the black women in Detroit and the black girls in Detroit. We really be holding each other down. Um, okay, Deidre, come through. So she was talking about friendships
Mhm.
and how our what our friends are supposed to do for us and the you know what friendship should look like, what healthy friendship should look
Mhm.
like. And that really resonated with me because my friendships are my family, you know, they're my community,
Mhm.
they're where I go to feel safe and grounded. So that really it really spoke to me because I'm on that like journey of let's build a village, you know, let's
Good.
connect with people, let's be each other's harvest. um what resonated with you when you were reading this first and now rereading it today?
Because, I think a lot of times we just, we give young people advice, like we give girls advice, but we're not explicit. You know, you should have hang around good people. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what does it mean to be a good friend? How should people treat you? And like, how do you treat them in return? I love that it was explicit and it broke down, to girls, this is what it means to be treated well. Because sometimes if they look around them, they may not see a lot of examples of that.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So Allison says we have a few minutes before we go to the questions from our attendees. And is there any poem, or I said poem? You know, these letters are poetic. Okay, they have a poetic element to them, and you know, I be out here. So, is there any letter that we haven't gone over that you would like to read or just talk about a little bit before we go to the attendees?
Sure, I'd love to end with the epilogue because I think it kind of sums up what I'd like girls and women to take from the book. And the epilogue, in honor of Zora Neale Hurston, is called "Pick Up Your Oyster Knife." I love you, Black girl. I love Black girls in Afro puffs and Black girls in bundles of Remy. I love daddy's girls and the fatherless ones. I love the little girls who make straight A's and the ones who skip school. I love the hood girls and the suburban girls and the country girls too. I love the quiet girls and the loud girls, the lip smacking, smart talking ones. I love the saved girls and the heathen ones. I love the girls who stay in sweatshirts and J's and the ones in the tight Fashion Nova fits. I love the happy girls and the anxious girls and the girls battling depression. I love the trans girls living defiantly. I love the girls in the library and the ones on the basketball court. I love the virgins and the young mamas. I love the girly girls and the butch girls. I love the girls who fight. I love the girls who love boys and the girls who love girls and the girls who love both or neither. I love you, Black girl, unconditionally. And whether you are 15 or 50, you hear me today. I love you whether you look or act like they say you should. You are not wrong. And when you are wrong, I love you with all your flaws. No matter what choices and mistakes you have made, no matter where you live, no matter what you look like, no matter what thing has happened to you. And the greatest thing you can learn is to love yourself unconditionally too. It may be the hardest thing you have to learn. And I hope the letters in this book have shown you how. One other thing, Black girl, you must learn to love other Black women and girls the same way. Love us whether we look or act like they say we should. We are not wrong, and when we are wrong, love us with all our flaws. No matter what choices and mistakes we have made, no matter where we live, no matter what we look like, no matter what thing has happened to us. This does not mean you have to become a target for another Black girl's pain, anger, or trauma. It doesn't mean you have to silence yourself in the face of Black women. It means you must give your sisters grace and understanding, the benefit of the doubt. So few people give us that. We owe it to each other. We have to acknowledge each other's humanity, even, maybe especially, when we are walking away. I hope the letters in this book have shown you how to do that, too. Because we are sisters, Black girl. We have to take care of ourselves and each other. You are me, I am you, and we are all right. Inside each of us are tiny pieces of our foremothers, Sarah Boone's ingenuity, Danielle Luna's unforgettable beauty, Toni Morrison's incomparable wisdom, Mamie Till's fierce love, Aretha Franklin's creativity, Marsha P. Johnson's fearlessness, Harriet Tubman's will to survive, Katherine Johnson's genius, Michelle Obama's grace. Black girls are made up of all that magic, birthed in the African sun, baptized by the Middle Passage, and burnished by America. That is a power that no one else can claim, just us. We are sisters. You are me. I am you. And we will get free together. Zora Neale Hurston, a great Black woman writer, once said, "I do not weep at the world. I am too busy sharpening my oyster knife." Now, an oyster knife is a utensil used to crack open the shell of an oyster to get the tasty meat inside. Zora meant that she wasn't wasting time thinking about the hard parts of being Black and a woman, and she didn't care what other people said about her. She was too busy trying to get at all the good stuff life had to offer. Celebrate your Black girl life. Celebrate us. Be like Zora and get that oyster girl.
Ashe, thank you. Dev says that's beautiful.
Thank you.
That is so beautiful. Oh my goodness. Well, we have some questions. Thank you, everyone. So just to let you know, you can put questions in the chat or in the Q&A, which someone has, and we're going to get to that question. If you have a desire to speak yourself, then you want to put that in the chat. Okay. So our first question is from Courtney Okiki. Thank you both for so much for this amazing talk. For both of you as writers, how have you created a village or community to support you in your writing? I would love to hear about other books, authors, or written works that inspire you both as well. I'm glad I'm doing some questions because this is for you both.
So, one book that I think everyone is talking about, my dear friend Disha Philia has a book out, Secret Lives of Church Ladies, that is absolutely fabulous. And she writes and centers Black women and girls' experiences. And it is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't read it, you definitely should. You are missing out. And I also have to shout out my friend Rochelle Riley, who has a new book out, That They Lived, which is good for your little ones, to teach them that all great icons started as children, which is something that they need to know. What about you, Dee Dee?
Right, Ashe, thank you. I have a group of Black women writer friends, and we help each other because it can be difficult as a writer to motivate yourself to write, especially given all the stressors of life. And so we check in with each other every week, and we help each other edit our work, and one of us, Dev, is going to be publishing her poetry book soon. So y'all be on the lookout for that. And Dev is a local Detroiter and does a whole bunch of healing and safety work. And so they're using their poetry as medicine, which is so important for us as Black girls and Black women. You know, Black girl magic. We gotta, use our writing as medicine. And so that's how we support each other. Really, I am because we are. And so I wouldn't be writing if I didn't have this village of like Black women and Black girl writers checking in with me, holding me accountable. I want to shout out Sonia too, because Sonia really be on me like, Dee, have you written this week? I'm like, oh no, gotta get on my writing because Sonia's gonna check in with me again. So I'm a villager. Okay, I love my village, and I'm nothing without my village.
Well, Dee, I want to invite you and the rest of your friends who are here so I co-founded something called the Black Women's Writing Society with a friend, Ebony Chappelle, who's a journalist in Indianapolis. And the quarantine has forced us online. And actually we may stay there just because it allowed us to bring in so many amazing women from across the country. So we meet on the second Tuesday of every month, and it's just a gathering of Black women. We usually do like a little bit of education, and then we take like an hour and a half just to write, and then at the end we share. So we figure that very often Black women can't make time to write. So if there's no time, then there's at least a couple hours, one Tuesday a month.
Wow, thank you so much. I need that. So I will be following up to see how I can plug in.
Awesome.
Yes.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
The know this part of the book, where did that come from? Like the idea of putting that in there. It's just special to me, but.
So as I was, talking to other women, like there are issues that I wanted to talk to that I wasn't sure whether like a 15-year-old, they'll know what they're experiencing, but they may not have the word to put to it, and this would help them start to get the vocabulary to explain some of those things. Or there may be people that I mention in the book, I might mention Zora or Marsha P. Johnson, and they just don't know who that is yet. And so I wanted this to be a gateway to them learning some other things that are going to be nurturing to them.
Thank you.
I also want to let people know that if you go to my website, which is TamaraWinfreyHarris.com, there is a free reader experience kit that you can download. And it offers some additional questions that go along with each chapter. So if you're using this book to like talk to a niece or a student or a daughter, some questions, and then also some tips that on how to have a good intergenerational conversation. And I worked with both my friend Tiffany, who's a psychologist, and my friend Carolyn, who is an educator, on giving people some good sound tips on how to have a good conversation. There are also some really, really cool paper dolls that I'm too old to play with, but they're cute, and a really dope playlist.
So can you print out the paper dolls?
Yes. Yep. You can print them out.
That is perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Any more questions? Oh, we got hearts.
Oh, I love hearts.
I'm trying to think if I had another one. I had like a few.
I think another thing I can share with people while you're looking is that if you enjoyed The Sisters Are All Right, which you mentioned, Allison, when we started, there's actually a second expanded edition of The Sisters Are All Right coming out this fall. So I am finishing up the manuscript now. So I am adding some information, some new interviews, and a new chapter on Black women empowered. So talking about, all the things that have happened in politics and, community organizing and all of those things that Black women have led over the last 5 years.
I'm so
Out
excited.
this fall, yeah.
So it's coming out this fall, like late fall or early fall? It doesn't matter.
I believe it's September or October. Yes.
It's September. That's also my birthday, so it would be a gift.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. Question to Lonnie Pryor. Do you think films and TV shows depicting Black women friendships has had negative, positive, or neutral impact on how we view these relationships?
Kind of yes, and I mean, so there are too few representations of us sometimes, which means that when you have a negative portrayal, then it holds more weight than if we just had all these wonderful, portrayals that, we could just choose from. So, I think there have been some positive portrayals, there have been some negative portrayals, but very often it's the negative ones that stand out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When did you originally start writing? And is there a time in life that had that had particularly encouraged you to start writing?
So I was a weird little child, a strange, very bookish child. And I used to even when I was a little kid, I would make my own magazines and make my own books. My mother said you were always in the corner talking to yourself, making up stories. And I knew I wanted to major in journalism when I was in elementary school. It was just what I loved. Making up stories was what I loved to do. So I've always been a writer, and it might be in the blood because I started doing some genealogy work a few years ago, and I found my great grandmother, who raised 10 kids on a farm in Alabama, a stack of her poetry that she wrote in the early 1900s. So, there must be some drive in my family to write and create stuff.
If we have any more questions, let's kind of bring those to the fore, and then we're gonna end this up.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.
Well, thank you so much for all of your books.
Thank you.
And this one,
Thank
the
you.
one we're going to be focusing on right now. And then in September, we're going to have a whole new party.
Yay! I'm there.
And so I'm so happy to hear that you and Rochelle can both have books for young people, because we have a lot of information coming out about wayward lives and just so many things, and they're so deep. And I think children, they need so much inspiration, and the letters I think are a perfect vehicle, because with email and stuff, letters may be in the past, but they can see the function of letters, and how powerful they can be. So,
and I love, I love that writing a letter takes more care than we kind of give with conversation nowadays, where everything is so it's dashed off. It's okay, we don't even use full sentences. So that some of these women sat down and found stationery and wrote letters out longhand and found a stamp and took, like, that takes care. And I think it says
Yes.
something about their love for Black girls.
Yeah, yes, indeed it does. So, Adila, would you like to say anything? I want to thank you 1,000 times.
I wanted to thank you too. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
You were
thanks
a wonderful
so much.
interviewer. It was great being in conversation with you.
Thank you. It was great being in conversation with you too. Thank you. And
And
thank you for asking me and for trusting me and for allowing me this opportunity. I really am grateful to both of you, Tamara. So,
And
I see someone saying that they're going to use this with a girls group. Please, if you do, please reach out to me. I am more than happy to send book plates to girls so that they can have a signed book, since I can't be there in person. And I love talking to Black girls. So please do reach out to me.
yay. And okay, thank you for this inspiring conversation. I look forward to getting my copy of Dear Black Girl in the mail and ordering more for the young women in my life. Thank you, Dee Dee and Tamara, and Source Booksellers for putting on this wonderful event. Tamara, have you had any reaction from Black girl readers yet?
The one that most sticks with me is one, I think she's like 14-year-old, was like, oh my gosh, nobody's ever done this for me before. Because I think it goes back to the fact that most of us don't get letters anymore, certainly not if we're kids. So, I think they feel that love.
Perfect. And Antoinette is going to already downloading the kit, and excited about the paper dolls. So thank you so much for all the resources as well.
Awesome.
All right. So best wishes on the rest of your dates, and we're rooting for the book from here, and we're gonna try to expose it to as many young girls as we can, and like young ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
appreciate you too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks everybody.